My wife put a folder on my desk and told me the young man I had raised like a son had been stealing from me for 6 months. Ray, you need to stop protecting him. I was 63 years old, and I had spent 41 of those years inside Mercer Print and Letter, the little commercial print shop my father started before I was old enough to reach the paper cutter. I knew what theft looked like. I also knew Marcus Hale, and the numbers in that folder did not look like him. They looked like someone who expected me to be too tired, too sentimental, or too old to check. Elaine stood across from me with both palms pressed against the edge of my desk. $18,000 in missing stock, she said. Customer deposits that don't reconcile. Overtime nobody approved. How much more do you need? I looked down at the first page. Marcus's employee number appeared 3 times. That was the problem. It appeared too neatly. Before I tell you what I did with that folder, understand something about Marcus. I wasn't my biological son, but families aren't always built in hospitals. Sometimes they're built at loading docks. Marcus first walked into my shop when he was 16, carrying a school backpack with one broken strap and asking whether I needed someone to sweep floors. His mother, Teresa, had worked 2 blocks away at a diner. She was raising him alone. I knew her well enough to know she was proud and tired in equal measure. I told Marcus I could give him 6 hours on Saturdays. He showed up at 7:15 the next morning for an 8 o'clock shift. By 8:10, he had already swept the front room, stacked the recycling, and asked why our old Heidelberg press sounded different every 4th rotation. Most 16-year-olds didn't hear that. Marcus did. My father would have liked him. 3 years later, Teresa died suddenly after a short illness. Marcus was 19. I had nowhere steady to go. My first wife had been gone for years by then, and my daughter lived across the country with a family of her own. So Marcus started eating dinner at my house, then keeping work boots in my mudroom, then sleeping in the spare bedroom whenever the apartment he shared with 2 college friends became impossible. Nobody held a ceremony. Nobody signed anything. He simply became part of my life. Years later, when I married Elaine, Marcus was already woven into the shop. Elaine knew that. At first, she seemed to appreciate it. She had come into my life when I was 49, and convinced I had missed my chance at having a real home again. Elaine was bright, organized, funny, in a way that could make a grocery store line feel like a party. She had a daughter, Kelsey, who was 22 when we married. I never tried to replace Kelsey's father. I did help with emergencies, moving trucks, 1 tuition payment, 2 broken down cars, and more Sunday dinners than I could count. For years, I thought we had built something decent. Not perfect, decent. That mattered to me. My biggest flaw has always been that once I decide someone belongs to my family, I become slow to question them. I call it loyalty when I'm feeling charitable. My daughter calls it denial. Elaine eventually left her job at a medical billing office and joined Mercer Print as our office manager. She was good at it. Our customer files became cleaner. Collections improved. Invoices went out on time. I trusted her with payroll access, vendor accounts, and our scheduling system. Kelsey later started a small branding and event design business. I sent work her way when clients needed logos, banners, or social media packages we didn't provide. Marcus never complained. In fact, he was the one who taught Kelsey how to prepare files properly for commercial printing, so her designs stopped arriving with missing fonts and low-resolution images. That was our family, or so I believed. The trouble started 8 weeks before the shop's 40th anniversary. We were planning a Saturday celebration for employees, retired staff, longtime customers, and suppliers. Nothing fancy. Food, photographs from the old days, a few stories about my father. I had even pulled his first hand-painted Mercer Print sign out of storage. Marcus wanted to hang it behind the original front counter. Elaine wanted something more polished. Kelsey can design a full anniversary wall, she said. Dad's sign is the anniversary wall. She rolled her eyes. You know what I mean. That should have been nothing. At the time it was. 2 days later, Marcus asked whether I had changed the overtime approval system. No. He showed me his phone. 3 Saturday shifts from the previous month were missing from his pay. I put them through, he said. You sure? I gave me a look. Marcus had been running production for almost 9 years. I was sure. I told him Elaine would fix it. She did. Or appeared to. She blamed a payroll software update. Marcus shrugged it off. I did too. That was the first clue. The second came from our paper supplier. A truck arrived on a Wednesday with 20 cases of premium-coated stock. I happened to be standing near receiving when the driver asked where he should put the other 10. What other 10? He checked his tablet. 30 total on the order. 20 for this address. 10 marked customer pickup. I hadn't authorized customer pickup. Our warehouse was not full. I asked which customer. The driver scrolled. Bright Finch Creative, Kelsey's company. I stared at him for a second too long. Then I smiled. Probably part of a combined order. Leave these here. After he left, I found Elaine. Why is Kelsey picking up our paper from Nolan? Elaine barely looked up. She had a rush event. Did she buy it through us? She's paying us back. Why not order under her own account? Elaine sighed. Ray, it's paper. She needed 10 cases. We get better pricing. That was true. I didn't like it, but it was true. I asked Marcus if he knew about it. I didn't. That was clue number 2. The third clue arrived 4 days before Elaine accused him. I came in early because the old paper folder on Press 2 had been giving us trouble. Before I reached the production floor, I noticed something on the desk beside Elaine's computer. A payroll report. At the bottom was a line I didn't recognize. Production Consulting, K. Rowan Media. 12 We didn't have a production consultant, and Kelsey's last name was Rowan. I picked up the report. Elaine walked in carrying her purse. She stopped. For maybe half a second. Then she smiled. You're early. What's K. Rowan Media? Kelsey helped us with anniversary materials for $2,800. Design planning, vendor coordination. I looked toward the production floor. I thought she was doing the anniversary wall as a favor. She was. Then the scope changed. Who approved it? Ray. Her smile disappeared. You did. I searched my memory. I had approved a budget for catering and decorations. I did not remember approving a $2,850 consulting payment. Elaine reached for the paper. You've had a lot going on. That sentence bothered me more than the money. I kept the report in my hand. What does that mean? It means you don't need to remember every little administrative thing anymore. That's why you have me. She kissed my cheek. Then she took the report. I let her. I wish I could tell you I understood everything in that moment. I didn't. What I understood was smaller. My wife had just explained away my own missing memory instead of showing me the approval. And I had spent enough years inspecting mistakes in print jobs to know one rule. When someone gives you an explanation before you ask for evidence, slow down. 4 days later, she brought me the folder accusing Marcus. Inside were inventory shortages, customer account adjustments, copies of production tickets, and a spreadsheet showing repeated losses tied to Marcus's employee number. Elaine had highlighted the worst lines in yellow. She was ready. Too ready. He's been staying late, she said. He runs production. He stays late all the time. Exactly. That isn't evidence. She opened the folder to another page. 3 customers paid deposits that were adjusted out later. By Marcus, his user ID. Marcus had access to production jobs. He did not normally adjust customer payments that required office privileges. I looked closer. How did his ID do this? He probably got someone's password. Whose? Elaine folded her arms. Mine maybe. You're saying Marcus stole your password. I'm saying we don't know how far this goes. That was the moment I knew I could not confront him yet. If Marcus was innocent, showing him the folder would terrify him and possibly change his behavior. If he was guilty, confronting him would give him time to destroy whatever I hadn't found. So I did something Elaine did not expect. I closed the folder. All right. Her face softened. You'll let him go. I'll handle it. When? Before the anniversary. She nodded. Good. Then she said something I remembered later. Kelsey can help with production until you hire someone more reliable. There it was. Not proof. Direction. That evening I did not go home at 6. I told Elaine I wanted to finish checking the folder. She offered to stay. I told her not to. At 7:20, the shop became quiet enough that I could hear the ventilation fans above finishing. I took out the folder again. Then I pulled the old payroll report from a recycling bin beside Elaine's desk. She had torn it once across the middle. I taped it together. K. Rowan Media. Twinixdom. I logged into the accounting system using my owner credentials. I had not used that level of access in months. Elaine handled most of the daily work, and I had allowed that convenience to become distance. The first thing I checked was the consulting payment. There were 6 of them, not one. 6 payments to businesses with slightly different descriptions. K. Rowan Media, Rowan Event Support, Bright Finch Production, Creative Install Services. The total was just over $14,000, all connected to Kelsey. Some may have been legitimate, but none carried my electronic approval. That did not mean they were fraudulent. Elaine had authority to pay ordinary vendors, so I kept looking. At 9:30, I found Marcus's missing overtime. Not deleted, reclassified. His 3 Saturday shifts had originally been entered correctly. Then, 2 days before payroll closed, someone had changed the cost code from production labor to promotional development. The adjustment had been made through Elaine's administrator account. Marcus got his money eventually only because he complained. I leaned back in my chair. That was proof someone had touched his record, not proof of theft. The next morning, I called our outside accountant, Denise Carter. Denise had handled our year-end books for 12 years. I told her I was concerned about internal coding errors and wanted a quiet review. Does Elaine know? Not yet. There was a pause. Should she? I don't know. That answer told Denise everything she needed to hear. She did not dramatize it. She simply said, "Send me the reports you're looking at. Don't alter anything." That became my first consequential decision. I stopped trying to solve the problem as a husband. I started preserving it as an owner. My second decision was harder. I called Marcus into my office, not to accuse him, to protect him. I slid a vacation form across the desk. "I want you to take Thursday and Friday off next week." He frowned. "Before the anniversary." "Yes, that makes no sense." "I know." "Am I in trouble?" I looked at him. Marcus had the same worried crease between his eyebrows he'd had at 19 when he broke a customer's display stand and offered to work free until he paid for it. "No," I said. "But I need you to trust me for a few days." He leaned back. "Is this about Elaine?" I didn't answer. That frightened me. "What makes you ask that?" He hesitated. Then he closed my office door. "She's been asking me weird questions." "What kind?" "About what happens if you retire." I said nothing. "She wanted to know whether I thought you'd sell." "When?" "Couple months ago." "What did you say?" "That I figured you'd die yelling at somebody for loading cardstock grain wrong." Despite everything, I laughed. Marcus didn't. She didn't think it was funny. "What else?" He rubbed his jaw. "She asked whether I'd sign an employment agreement if Kelsey took over client accounts." I felt something tighten in my chest. "Did you?" "No." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because she's your wife." There it was. My flaw reflected back at me. Marcus had stayed silent for the same reason I had ignored the paper order. Family loyalty. I told him to take the 2 days. And Marcus, "Yeah, don't access the accounting system. Don't stay late alone. Don't change anything about how you work." His eyes narrowed. "You think somebody's setting me up? I think I need facts." He nodded. That was all. Denise called the next afternoon. I found something. I shut my office door. The customer adjustments weren't done by Marcus. The reports say his ID. The reports you were given say his ID. The underlying accounting audit log says the adjustment requests were imported through a batch file. Whose? Generated from Elaine's workstation. My mouth went dry. San Marcus generate one, with administrator credentials, so she can say he stole hers. She can. That was Elaine's strongest defense, and she had already planted it. Denise continued. There's another issue. Several deposits were moved from open customer jobs to a temporary clearing account. How much? Just under 22,000. Missing? Not exactly. I hated that phrase. Where is it? Some was later applied to invoices for Bright Finch, Kelsey's company. I stood up. Meaning what? Meaning money customers paid Mercer appears to have covered work produced for Kelsey. I looked through the glass toward the production floor. Marcus was helping a new employee line up a stack of menus at the cutter. Then you prove who moved it. I can prove which administrator account did it. I cannot prove who was sitting at the keyboard. That mattered. Elaine was not stupid. If she was doing this, she had built herself an excuse. I thanked Denise. Then I made my third decision. I stopped looking for a confession. I looked for a pattern. Every print shop leaves trails. Paper enters through receiving. Jobs enter through estimating. Files go through pre-press. Plates and toner are counted. Machine meters move. Finished pieces leave through shipping. You can alter an invoice. You can rename a customer. You can even misuse an employee number. But producing physical work creates physical history. My father taught me that before computers ran anything. Paper remembers, he used to say. I started with the 30-case delivery. Our supplier emailed me the order history. Elaine had placed it. 20 cases to Mercer, 10 pickup for Bright Finch, but Mercer had paid the full invoice. That by itself was sloppy, not criminal. Then I checked 3 earlier orders. Same pattern. Small extras, 5 cases, 8 cases, specialty envelopes, rigid signboard, all purchased on Mercer's account, all partially diverted to Bright Finch. I added the numbers. Nearly $9,000 over 6 months. Then I checked production meters. We maintained machine logs because our service contracts billed partially by impression count. Our main digital press had run hundreds of thousands more impressions than the production schedule explained. That was unusual. I pulled the service portal history. Large runs appeared after normal closing hours. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, most between 9 at night and midnight. I printed the list. Then I compared it to the building alarm records. Marcus's alarm code had been used on several of those nights. For 10 minutes I felt sick. Then I noticed something. The code did not disarm the building. The building was already disarmed. Marcus's code appeared only when a production terminal woke up. That meant the report Elaine had shown me combined 2 different systems and made them look like one. The actual alarm log told a different story. Elaine's code opened the building. Kelsey's temporary vendor code opened the side entrance. Marcus's employee ID appeared later on production tickets. Someone had used his production login. The easy conclusion was that Elaine and Kelsey had done exactly what I feared, but I still needed to overcome their defense. Maybe Marcus had shared the login. Maybe he was involved. Maybe Elaine had legitimate reasons for being there. So I called Martin Bell. Martin had serviced our presses for 17 years. I didn't ask him for private data. I asked him to explain our own equipment. Can the operator ID on these jobs be changed after printing? The job ticket, Kenny said. The service log can't. What does the service log record? Machine start, job count, maintenance state, operator badge when used. Badge. Yeah. You installed badge authentication last year after that data security requirement from the hospital client. I had forgotten. Not because I was old, because the change had been boring. The hospital network required us to secure devices used for patient-facing materials. We didn't print medical records, but we handled appointment packets and signage. Martin had added badge access to the main press. That was the hidden leverage Elaine didn't know mattered. Most employees hated the badges, Marcus especially. I usually clipped his to the collar of his work shirt. I asked Martin whether I could access the reports as the machine owner. He showed me where. I downloaded 6 months. The midnight runs were not authenticated with Marcus's badge. They were authenticated with a master administrative badge. There were only 2. One stayed locked in my office. The other had been issued to Elaine because she occasionally needed to release a queued job when production staff were gone. I checked my badge. still in the small steel drawer where I kept spare keys and old service contracts. I did not feel triumphant. I felt married. That was worse. I sat there for a long time. Then I called my daughter, Hannah. She lived in Oregon and had never been involved in the shop. That was why I called her. I needed someone who loved me but didn't need the business. When I finished explaining, she went quiet. "Dad, are you safe?" The question surprised me. "Of course. I don't mean physically." She paused. "Do you understand what this means?" "I understand what the records show." "No. I'm asking whether you understand what it means that your wife prepared a theft case against Marcus." I looked at the folder Elaine had given me. She thought I'd believe it. "She thought you'd fire him." "Yes. And then what?" "Kelsey can help with production until you hire someone more reliable." I closed my eyes. "I know." Hannah exhaled. "You always think the best of people until they force you not to. That's not the worst thing a person can be." "No." Her voice softened. "But sometimes it gets expensive." The next layer came from an ordinary cardboard box. A shipment arrived addressed to Kelsey at Mercer Print. Elaine wasn't in the office. I signed for it. The label read, "Event Display Hardware." I called Kelsey. "Something came here for you." "Oh, I'll grab it." "What is it?" "Display frames. For the anniversary." There was a pause. "Sort of." "What does sort of mean?" "Mom said she was handling it." "That sentence again." "Mom said." Elaine said. "Everybody relying on the person controlling the information." I did not open Kelsey's package. I put it aside. An hour later she arrived. She looked startled to see me near the front desk. "Hey, Ray." She picked up the box. "You doing a big event?" "Just some client stuff." "Business good?" Her smile widened. "Actually really good." "I'm glad." And I meant it. That was part of what hurt. I had wanted her business to succeed. I had introduced her to customers. I had printed sample kits at cost. I had let her use our conference room when she could not afford one. She did not need to take from me. Unless this wasn't about need. As she turned toward the door, I noticed the logo printed on the side of the box. Northline Display Systems. We used them too. After she left, I logged into Mercer's vendor account. 3 Northline invoices had been paid by Mercer in the last 2 months. The shipping addresses were different. One was our shop. 2 went directly to Bright Finch. The purchase approvals were Elaine's. By Friday, Denise had documented enough that I could suspend Elaine's financial permissions without damaging daily operations. I did not do it yet. Not because I was afraid, because our anniversary was 8 days away, and I had finally understood the larger plan. On Elaine's shared office calendar was a private appointment she apparently forgot I could still see. Anniversary transition deck, Kelsey. Transition. I searched our company server. No hacking, no password guessing, just folders my owner account was authorized to access. Inside the marketing directory was a presentation. The first slide said, "Mercer, print the next 40 years." The second slide showed Kelsey. The third showed me. Under my photograph were the words, "Founder Legacy, Advisory Role." Founder. I had been 22 when my father opened the shop. I died 6 years later. I had run it for 35 years. Apparently, I was now a decorative old man in my own business. The next slide named Elaine as Business Administration Director. Kelsey was your Client Strategy Director. Marcus's name did not appear anywhere. There was a proposed organization chart, 2 future hires, a rebranded logo, a list of customers labeled Migration Opportunities. Then I reached a slide titled Leadership Risk. There were 3 bullets. Ray resistant to modernization. Marcus influence on Ray. Need clear authority after announcement. I read those 3 lines twice. The theft accusations were not an isolated attempt to protect the business. They were part of a transition. My transition. Only nobody had asked me. That night, Elaine and I ate dinner at our kitchen table. She talked about catering. I watched her cut a baked potato in half and realized I had shared more than 4,000 dinners with this woman. Maybe that number isn't accurate, But that's what marriage feels like when trust breaks. Not one dramatic memory, thousands of ordinary ones. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to put the printouts on the table. I wanted her to cry and tell me I misunderstood. Instead, I asked, "What do you think I should do after the anniversary?" She looked pleased. "Take some time. From the shop. You've earned it." "For how long?" She reached across the table. "Ray, you don't have to die behind that counter." That was almost kind. Almost. "And Marcus." She withdrew her hand. "You know my opinion. I want to hear it. He's too attached to the old way of doing things. He's 31. You know what I mean?" "No." Her jaw tightened. "I encourages you to distrust change." I nearly laughed. Marcus had been begging me for 2 years to replace our ancient estimating software. Instead, I said, "Kelsey thinks differently. She sees where the industry is going. So does Marcus. Marcus sees himself inheriting the place." That was new. "I told you that. I doesn't have to." There are moments when a lie is more informative than the truth. Marcus had never asked for the business. I had considered offering him a minority ownership path someday. I had not told Elaine. I had not even told Marcus. So her certainty was not based on something he had done. It was based on what she feared. The next morning I protected the shop. I met Denise and our bank manager. We changed financial controls so no single employee could create a new vendor and release a payment without a second approval. Elaine's existing permissions remained visible to her, but large transfers now required confirmation. We changed nothing retroactively. We deleted nothing. We preserved everything. Then I called our employment attorney, not to plan some theatrical lawsuit, but to make sure I handled employee suspensions fairly. I gave him the evidence. He advised me to engage an independent forensic accountant, because my wife was both an employee and family member. So I did. The review would take time. That was fine. Justice that takes a few weeks is still justice. On Monday, Elaine discovered the payment control. She walked into my office with her phone. "Did you change the bank permissions?" "Yes." "Why?" "Denise recommended tighter controls." "Since when does Denise run this company?" "She doesn't." Elaine stared at me. "Is this because of Marcus?" I looked up. "Why would it be?" For the first time, she seemed unsure. "Because you keep hesitating. About firing someone I've known 15 years. He stole from us. Then good controls should help us document it." She went still. That answer told her I was no longer moving at the speed she wanted. An hour later, Kelsey arrived. She rarely came to the shop before noon. That morning she came at 9:15. They shut themselves in Elaine's office. I didn't listen at the door. I didn't need to. At 11, Kelsey sent me an email proposing a meeting about anniversary messaging. I accepted. She came into my office carrying a tablet. "I think Saturday could be a really important moment. For cake." She laughed too loudly. "For the future." She opened the transition deck. I pretended I had never seen it. She walked me through the first 5 slides. When she reached my advisory role, she smiled. "This doesn't mean you're leaving. That's good. I own the place." The smile flickered. "Of course. What does advisory mean?" "It means you get freedom." "From what?" "Daily pressure. Who runs production? We'd restructure." "Marcus." She glanced toward the floor. "I don't think Marcus is part of the long-term vision." "Why?" "Mom told me what happened." There it was. Kelsey knew about the accusation. Which part? Her eyes moved back to the screen. "The missing inventory." "What else?" "I don't know details." "That's smart." She frowned. "Why?" "Because details matter." I closed the presentation. "I'll think about it." That Friday, Marcus took the 2 vacation days I had requested. At noon, Elaine came into my office. "You sent Marcus home. He's on vacation." She smiled. I saw relief. Maybe that's best. Maybe. At 7 that evening, I parked 2 blocks from the shop. Not hidden, not spying. I simply wanted to see whether the pattern continued when Marcus was absent. At 9:08, my phone notified me that the building alarm had been disarmed. I had enabled owner alerts that morning. Elaine's code. At 9:21, Kelsey's temporary access opened the side door. I did not go inside. I did not confront them. I went home. The next morning, I checked the machine service portal. 28,600 impressions. Administrative badge. Marcus was 40 miles away visiting his girlfriend's parents. Whatever had happened overnight, he had not done it. The order showed up in shipping Monday morning. 20 boxes of glossy promotional booklets. Customer field blank. The design featured a luxury apartment development Kelsey had recently bragged about landing as a client. That was the third layer. This wasn't just Elaine helping her daughter with supplies. They were using my company's equipment, materials, labor systems, vendor credit, and customer money to subsidize Bright Finch. Then they were moving the resulting losses into Marcus's records. I finally understood the motive. Kelsey's company looked successful because Mercer was carrying part of its costs, and Marcus had become dangerous because he knew production well enough to notice. The anniversary was 5 days away. Elaine believed I was planning to dismiss him there. Instead, I called Marcus in. I told him everything. Not every document. Enough. He sat across from me without speaking for almost a minute. Then he asked the question I had been avoiding. Why me? I hated the answer. Because you were between them and the shop. He looked away. I thought Elaine didn't like me. I didn't know she was afraid of you. I'm not taking your business. I know. Did she think you were giving it to me? Maybe. He stood up. I should quit. No, Ray. No, she's your wife, and you're my employee. One I allowed to be accused because I stopped paying attention. You didn't accuse me. I almost did. He shook his head. But you didn't. That distinction mattered to him. It did not absolve me. I said I want you at the anniversary. He laughed once without humor. You're still having it. Yes. Why? Because 40 years of work belongs to more people than Elaine and Kelsey. He studied me. What are you going to do? The part I should have done sooner. Saturday arrived. The shop looked better than it had in years. We cleared part of the production floor. Old photographs hung from wire displays. The first invoice my father ever wrote was framed near the entrance. His hand-painted sign stood behind the counter exactly where Marcus wanted it. Elaine had stopped arguing about that. Kelsey installed her polished anniversary wall along the opposite side. There were nearly 80 people by 6:30, former employees, customers, suppliers, families. Elaine wore a navy dress and moved through the room, greeting people like a woman already hosting her future. Kelsey stood near the presentation screen. Marcus was helping an old pressman named Walter find a chair. At 7, Elaine touched my elbow. Ready. For what? The presentation. I thought I was giving the speech. You are. Then Kelsey. Okay. She searched my face. Did you talk to Marcus? Yes. Her eyes moved across the room toward him. And I talked to him. That was all I gave her. At 7:15, I stood in front of my father's sign. The room quieted. I told them about the first shop. 800 square feet. One press. No air conditioning. My father answering the phone while washing ink off his hands. People laughed. I thanked Walter for teaching me how to set type. I thanked Denise for keeping us honest. I thanked our suppliers. Then I called Marcus forward. Elaine's head snapped toward me. Marcus did not know I was going to do that. He walked up slowly. This man came through our door at 16 asking for a broom, I said. A few employees smiled. I became one of the best production people I've ever worked beside. I looked at him, and this week he reminded me that a business can have modern equipment and still fail if the owner stops seeing what's happening in front of him. The room became very quiet. Elaine moved closer to Kelsey. I continued. I owe Marcus an apology. Kelsey whispered something to her mother. For the last several weeks, he has been under suspicion for missing inventory and improper account activity. Now people were looking at Marcus. His face reddened. I said that suspicion was wrong. Elaine stepped forward. Ray. I held up one hand, not angrily. Just enough. She stopped. I'm not going to discuss private employee details at a party, I said. But I am going to correct something that should never have left my office. That was important. I was not there to humiliate my wife for entertainment. I was there to stop the lie she had built around an innocent man. I turned to Marcus. You did not steal from Mercer Print. He swallowed. Thank you. Then I faced everyone again. And because this business is under an independent financial review, there will be no leadership transition announcement tonight. Kelsey went pale. Elaine stared at me. The room did not understand yet. She did. Ray, can we talk privately? Yes. I looked toward Denise. Denise. She joined us. Then I nodded toward Thomas Green, the employment attorney who had advised me. Elaine recognized him. That was the moment the smile left her face completely. We walked into the conference room. Not a courtroom, not a stage, just the same room where we had discussed paper prices and Christmas schedules for 15 years. Elaine sat. Kelsey remained standing. What is this? She demanded. I placed the original accusation folder on the table. Then beside it, I placed a second folder. My folder. The allegation against Marcus has been withdrawn. Elaine looked at Denise. Based on what? Records. What records? The ones underneath the reports you gave me. She leaned back. You think I falsified something? I think customer money was reassigned through your administrator account. Her eyes narrowed. Marcus knew my password. There it was. Her strongest excuse. Exactly as expected. I nodded. That's possible. Kelsey looked relieved. Then I placed the machine service report on the table. The unauthorized production runs weren't released with Marcus's badge. Elaine said nothing. They were released with the administrative badge issued to you. Kelsey interrupted. That doesn't mean Mom ran them. No, I put down the building access report, but the building was opened with Elaine's security code. Elaine's face hardened. I have every right to enter this building. You did. Then what are you accusing me of? I looked at her. Nothing I can't document. I placed the supplier invoices down. $9,000 in Mercer materials routed to Bright Finch. Kelsey stepped closer. I was paying that back. Show me. She opened her mouth, closed it. Elaine said it was family support. Then why code it as Mercer customer production? It was temporary. I placed the deposit adjustments down. $22,000 in customer funds redirected through clearing accounts. Denise spoke for the first time. The review is still ongoing. Nobody in this room is making a final legal conclusion tonight. That mattered. We were not inventing instant justice. We were dealing with documented risk. I looked at Elaine. Your financial access is suspended effective tonight, pending the review. Her chair scraped backward. You cannot do that to me. As an employee, yes, I can. I'm your wife. That's a different conversation. She stared at me. Kelsey pointed toward the party outside. You planned this. No. My voice stayed low. You planned something. I interrupted it. Kelsey looked at her mother. I opened the transition presentation on the conference room screen. Elaine closed her eyes. There it was. My advisory role. Kelsey's leadership position. Marcus erased. Customer migration. Tell me what this is, I said. Elaine's expression changed. The denial faded. Something colder replaced it. You were never going to step back. No. You'll work until the place kills you. That was my decision. You don't listen. About retirement. About anything. Years of resentment entered the room all at once. She pointed toward Marcus through the glass. He has more influence over you than your own family. He works here. I worships this place. He respects it. And Kelsey doesn't. I looked at Kelsey. I helped Kelsey build her company. Kelsey's voice cracked. You never took me seriously. I referred customers to you. You referred little jobs. I let you use our equipment. No, Mom let me. That sentence landed harder than she realized. I turned toward Elaine. You let her because you believed this was already partly yours to give. Elaine stood. I gave you 14 years. I know. I organized your life, your company, your employees, everything. I know. And what was I supposed to get? A paycheck while Marcus eventually inherits it. There it was. The motive. Not hunger, not desperation. Entitlement mixed with fear. I said Marcus has never been promised this business. I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were. You were going to leave him everything. No. She stopped. I had finally surprised her. I was considering an employee ownership plan. Denise looked at me. Even she hadn't known that. Not just Marcus. Production. Customer service. People who have spent years building this place. Elaine stared at me. You would give it to employees before your own family. I thought about that word, family. Then I said the calmest true thing I could. Family was never supposed to mean whoever could take the most before I noticed. Nobody spoke. Through the conference room glass, I could see my father's old sign. 40 years. 4 decades of mistakes. Payrolls, late deliveries, births, funerals, recessions, weddings, broken presses. And one lesson I had somehow forgotten. Ownership isn't about control. It's about responsibility. Elaine picked up her purse. So you're choosing him. I shook my head. No. I looked at her. I'm choosing what is true. She left. Kelsey followed her. The anniversary continued. Awkwardly at first. Then honestly, I did not tell the room everything. They did not need everything. I told employees there would be an outside review. Elaine was taking leave from her role, and no one should speculate or retaliate. Then Walter raised his plastic cup and said, "Can we eat the cake before finance audits that too?" People laughed. The tension broke. Marcus stood beside me near my father's sign. "You okay?" he asked. "No, me neither." That felt strangely comforting. The forensic review took 7 weeks, not 7 minutes. It confirmed more than $38,000 in costs, materials, outside services, and customer funds had been improperly shifted to support Bright Finch over roughly 8 months. Some of that money was later repaid, some wasn't. The investigators also confirmed production records had been altered to make Marcus appear responsible for several losses. There was not enough evidence to claim Elaine had personally made every change. There was enough to establish that the changes came through accounts and systems she controlled. Kelsey insisted her mother had told her the shop had approved the arrangements. I believed that was partly true. I also believed Kelsey knew enough to understand she was getting more than a normal customer. Her company signed a repayment agreement for the documented costs it had received. Mercer terminated its vendor relationship with Bright Finch. Elaine never returned as an employee. Our marriage did not survive. I wish I had a dramatic scene for that part. I don't. We separated. We spent months sorting through a life, furniture, accounts, photographs, holiday boxes, the small, ordinary debris of 2 people who once expected to grow old in the same rooms. Sometimes Elaine was furious. Sometimes I was. Sometimes she cried. So did I. During one conversation, she said I really did think I was protecting our future. I believed her. That was one of the hardest things to accept. People can convince themselves that taking control is the same as protecting someone. They can rename greed as security. They can rename resentment as fairness. They can even hurt an innocent person and still see themselves as the injured party. Believing your own justification does not make the damage disappear. Kelsey's business survived. Smaller. More honest, I hope. Marcus stayed at Mercer. I did not hand him the company. That would have turned the whole story into the fantasy Elaine feared. Instead, with Denise's help, we spent the next year building an actual employee ownership plan. Slowly. With valuations, rules, buy-in requirements, responsibilities. Marcus became eligible alongside 4 other longtime employees. When I told him, he laughed. "You're making me buy my way into the place after all that." "Yes, good." "Why good?" "Because if you gave it to me, I'd wonder whether you were doing it because you felt guilty." I was right. Again, I also changed. That part matters. Before all this, I thought trust meant not checking. Now I know trust and oversight can live in the same room. I review reports again. Not every line. I'm still 63. I have better things to do. But I ask questions. I make people explain changes. No employee controls an entire financial process alone. And whenever someone says, "Don't worry, I handled it," I usually ask them to show me how. The old hand-painted sign still hangs behind the front counter. Marcus cleaned it himself after the anniversary. There's one crooked letter where my father's brush slipped more than 40 years ago. Kelsey's anniversary wall is gone. The sign remains. A few months after the investigation ended, I arrived early on a Saturday and found Marcus teaching one of our youngest employees how to load paper. The kid was fighting the stack. Marcus took one sheet and bent it gently. "Feel that." The kid looked confused. "The grain." I stood near the doorway listening. Marcus glanced over and caught me smiling. "What?" "Nothing. You're doing the old man thing." "What old man thing?" Standing there silently judging my technique. I walked toward him. "Your left guide is too tight." He looked at the machine, then at me, then loosened it. "Okay," he said. "You got one." I laughed. Outside morning light was coming through the front windows. The shop smelled like paper and ink, same as it had when I was 22. Different people, different machines, same responsibility. For a while I thought the worst thing Elaine had tried to take from me was money. It wasn't. It was my confidence in my own judgment. She almost convinced me that age had made me easier to fool, and that loyalty had made me weak. I know better now. Loyalty isn't refusing to see betrayal. Loyalty is refusing to abandon the innocent person when betrayal finally becomes visible. My father used to say, "Paper remembers." I was right, but so do people. And when the truth finally came through the press, I made sure the right names stayed on the page. If this story reminded you of a time someone underestimated you, share your thoughts below and subscribe for more family justice stories.